The Resident Evil TV show is terrible. So I'm going to go through why I hate it. I just have to say the first thing that happened to me was I stopped doing YouTube for years, and this show, and not just this show in general, this show, Thor, Love and Thunder, Lightyear with Chris Evans, and God forbid, Star Wars with Lucasfilm and Disney, and other like stuff that corporate media has turned into. I'm sick and tired of this bullshit that these corporations are doing to things that we loved before, and they are ruining our franchises. So that's why I made this YouTube channel, to put my voice out there and give them the finger, because I'm fucking tired of all this bullshit that's going on. So this is going to be a two-part series. The first part is going to be the first 3 episodes of Resident Evil, the TV show on Netflix, and the second part is going to be remaining 4, and trust me, there's going to be a lot to talk about in the last 4 episodes. But right now, I will talk about the first 3 episodes, because I will say the first 3 episodes are way more tolerable than the next 4 episodes. But I have to talk about the first things first, that this show, thank God it's not canon to the games, but the games are canon to this show. But this show doesn't make it seem like the games are canon to it. They just mention stuff that happened in the past, but they don't actually tell you how far or how many of the games are actually connected to this universe. And I swear to God, if they have a second season, I'm going to be freaking pissed, because this show does not deserve it. It's bad. It's terrible. And I will tell you, episode 1 alone has a lot of issues with it, and I think we should just get started right now. So the first 5 minutes are actually pretty decent. I don't really have a lot of issues with it, but except for the main character's Jade. Her name's Jade. Her hairstyle is kind of stupid, if you ask me. It's a different type of zombie universe. These zombies are blind, apparently, because they don't see Jade at all. That's within like 10 feet of them. But as soon as she cuts herself, they smell her blood and they instantly attack her. And these zombies run too. So these zombies are a lot more different than what we were used to in the other Resident Evil games, except for Resident Evil 6, because those run as well, or the Las Plagas, because those aren't really zombies, but they also run at you and everything. So we already know, and we're already put into a world that is much different than the previous Resident Evil games. When she gets chased down, she runs back to her base and activates an alarm. So when the alarm goes off, these poles that are surrounding her little tent area in the middle of the city spray this extremely hot fire, and the fire actually kills all the zombies coming at her, which is pretty cool, actually. It was pretty cool, especially for the CGI that Netflix actually has for the budget. It wasn't that bad. And then shortly after that, when the fire is extinguished, she feels like trembling underneath her feet. And a giant worm comes out, like caterpillar comes out, and it's about to attack the character, Jade. Then it cuts to black, and then it goes to a different scene. So after that decent opening, a song by Billie Eilish is playing in the Netflix show Resident Evil, I remind you. And we are introduced to 2 characters, Jade Wesker and Billie Wesker. And this Billie Wesker looks very similar to Billie Eilish. So I don't know if that was a joke or not, but this is ridiculously stupid. So instantly I knew that they were going to play more Billie Eilish songs, and I've already started thinking of like songs that Billie Eilish had that could possibly be in this show. Like, for example, Bad Guy, which is not in the show, by the way, but instantly made me think that this Billie character, when she gets older, is going to be bad. We will talk about that in the next part. Granted, we're not even 15 minutes into the show, and they already race shame. Not only did Jade race shame right away, she is already a not likable character from her dialogue. For example, they were talking about the house, because Billie was like, oh, this is a nice house, though. And then Jade goes, yeah, if I burn it down, can we just go home? It's 12 minutes into the show, and young version of Jade is not likable at all. And if that wasn't enough for you, she literally says Zootopia porn. She reads Zootopia porn. Zootopia porn is in the Resident Evil universe now. This is fucking insane, and these writers were probably like, oh, this is a good joke, fucking send it, guys, you know? No, that's fucking ridiculous, and I'm tired of this shit writing, and I'm tired of people thinking this writing is okay. It's not. And it gets worse from here, too. So Then all of a sudden this show turns to a CW, DCCW, or something just as bad with the freaking teenage love stories. It is ridiculous. So Jade is interested in men all the time. She's horny all the time. And then later on, Billy gets bullied at school by a girl who was literally just bullied. This other girl, she tried sitting down with her lunch, all right? She's walking out of the lunchroom, and she's like, oh, I want to sit at this lunch table. And this other bitch, this cheerleader, puts her feet up and prevents her from sitting down. And then she goes over to Billy, and then Billy was like, oh, hi, how are you? Being all nice and everything. And that bitch decides to freaking be a bully and bully the shit out of her. And then they get in a fight, and they're on the ground and that. And it's just freaking bad writing. Like, why is this a thing? Like, what is pushing this story further? I understand that you're trying to get Billy like out of the box, make her feel like awkward and everything, but it doesn't work like that when you have a character that was just bullied 2 seconds ago and then bullying this character for what? For what? Unless there was something cut, like she was trying to fit in and try to be cool and stuff like that. But it doesn't make sense. And by the way, that character is a trash character anyway. About 90% of the characters in this show is freaking trash. And then later on, there's another scene or two. But this show likes to go back and forth between the past and the future. So like we'll have like a scene, and then we'll go back to the future for like a minute or two, and then go back to the past for like 5 minutes, back to the future for like a minute. So it's really mind-boggling to understand what's going on in this show, considering the fact that this show feels like two separate shows happening simultaneously. So there's some things that are interesting, and then there's other things that are interesting, and then you have something that's not interesting and something else that's not interesting, and it's just a bad episode in general or something like that. So Jade and Billy talk to each other, all right? And Jade was like, hey, you need to stand up for yourself because the school is laughing at you. And Billy's like, oh, maybe you're right. So Billy goes to confront the bully, and the bully's name is Tammy. And instead of confronting her, she apologizes. She apologizes to her, all right? And then the bully all of a sudden just wants to be like a bitch again, and she just shoves her food into her face. Just shoves it in her face. And then Billy and Jade walk away. Jade says, fuck you, to the bully. And then you can see on Billy's face that she looks pissed. That was good acting. She literally looked really angry and pissed. And this is a perfect build-up because I literally hated Tammy at that moment. And instead, I really wanted to see Tammy to brutally die. But we don't get that in this show at all, all right? So we get something completely different. We get a beta male Wesker. That's what we get instead. We'll get into that here in just a sec. And instead, Jade gets so pissed off, she puts a raccoon helmet on. And then she goes to Tammy when she's in the bathroom, and then this hits her in the head. And then the next scene is Billy in her classroom taking a test or whatever. And then a teacher comes in, asks for her. They get pulled out of the classroom. They walk down, and you pass Tammy. She has a nosebleed, and her head has a bump. And the teacher tells her to open up the locker, and she opens up the locker, and there's that raccoon mask in there. So there's evidence that it was Billy that hit Tammy in the head. All right, so it comes down that we end up finding out who it was, and behold, it was Jade. Why the hell would Jade set up her own sister like that? Like, that's so dumb. Like, you're literally getting your sister in trouble, suspended, expelled from school, and all you're gonna do is just to be like, oh, you stood up for against a bully. No, you should have. It didn't make any sense. You know, they should have did it nonchalantly, and then Tammy could have assumed that it was Billy, and he had like a little tension there, here and there. So, but no, we didn't get that at all. She just set up her own sister for some reason. It was like a shit. She's a shit sister. Then that's what it comes down to. It cuts to future Jade again, and she has a bounty on her, and she's still kept captive. And there's like that I mentioned, there's a bounty on her head. And she's a prisoner still. Ooh, how exciting for this show so far. So the future stuff I really want to see, and that's supposed to be all the action to keep this stuff going. But no, it's trash. And actually, to come to think about it, I think they added the future stuff so that way they can actually have action and keep people's attention and keep those numbers up, so that way people don't stop watching the show. So I think that's what it comes down to, because so far all the future stuff is a bunch of filler. Alright, so this is where we get into Beta Wesker. So Billy is in the room with Tammy and her dad, and the dad is starting to rip into Billy about attacking the daughter. And Wesker starts talking to the dad, saying, your job, you're replaceable. You probably have like a 10,000 to 100,000 people that can replace you at your job, where I only have me, and there's only one person that can do my job at the Umbrella Corporation, and that is me. He goes into detail too. So he goes into detail and be like, I'll make sure Google, Facebook, and he even mentions this, and this is what mind boggles me. Like, they must think this is a good line, but they're like, I'll even have Pornhub shred your resume. Why do these people and these writers think this is a good line? Like, they think like they're 12 years old and their audience is 12 years old, and they're like, oh, they're gonna love this joke. No, it's bad joke. It's a bad joke. All right, let's speed up the end of this. So, Jade asks Billy for help to go into the Umbrella Corporation. So they go into the Umbrella Corporation and they're taking pictures of evidence to try to expose what's going on in Umbrella, because they're doing animal testing. And they hear like some sort of noise, and they unlock the door, and the dog, which is actually a zombified dog, breaks out, and then it chases Jade and Billy. So they're having a chase scene with this dog, which is a pretty good. It feels like Resident Evil when you actually have a creature from Resident Evil. It feels like Resident Evil. All right. So this dog is chasing them around. They're running away, and they hide underneath the table. And then the dog does a jump scare, and then they run outside and they try to get out, and it's locked, and they need to get the voice. And then the dog comes after them, and it actually bites Billy, and that was actually unexpected, considering the fact that earlier in this video I said that I was expecting her to be the big bad. So not only does she get bit, Jade finishes off the dog, kills it with the fire extinguisher, bashing its head in, and then Jade finally has a good moment in the show and actually shows that she can act. So she goes over to her dying sister, Billy, and she actually seems like she genuinely is sad. And not even just that, the music, the soundtrack for this moment actually hits too. So I actually felt this. It cuts, like it just cuts again, and it goes back to the future, and then it goes to where Jade is confronted by Baxter, and then says that, and he says that his sister is looking for her. So you know that she survives the dog bite, because that's what they're implying with this. So Jade then decides doesn't want to go to the Umbrella Corporation, so she turns, and they're on top of this little tower building, and then she just jumps off, and then fades to black, and then you get the director and everything. So, which also confirms my suspicion that Billy Wesker is actually the big bad, because remember I said earlier that I was expecting the song Bad Guy to play? Alright, so now that episode 1 is over, I think we're going to continue with episode 2 now. So episode 2 starts with Jade and Billy are on the floor, and Jade is still sad, and then Albert Wesker comes in, and then he, lo and behold, he takes care of the daughters, tells them to go home, they were never there, and then he just puts blood on his face, the blood from the dead dog, the zombified dog, he just puts the blood on his face. Literally doing a cover-up. And this is why live-action Resident Evils are terrible, because the next scene is a future scene again, and they're just firing all this ammo at zombies and everything, back down at Jade, just firing guns, and there's no ammo management, you know, what made Resident Evil, they're just firing guns, da-da-da-da, and that's it. And then Baxter and Jade, and they speak, and Jade gets saved by some random guy. Just a car comes out of nowhere, and she's like, hold up, wait, and then he stops. And then she gets in, and they drive away, and then he saved her somehow. So somehow some guy just happens to save her. And then after that, it goes back to the past again, and then it's Albert Wesker and Evelyn. You know, okay, so let me get a little sidetracked for a second. So I always thought this Evelyn was going to be the Evelyn from Resident Evil 8. That would have made sense, right? But no, it's not. It's just another girl named Evelyn. And if you actually look it up, she actually kind of looks like Evelyn from Resident Evil 8. So it would have been a perfect actress for her, in my opinion. So anyways, Wesker covers for his daughters to Evelyn. Alright, so future Jade is looking for a guy, and the guy's name is Barry. So you would think like, ooh, Barry, where did I hear that before in a Resident Evil universe? Oh, that's right, Barry Burton. Barry Burton is from Resident Evil 1, so are they actually going to have someone that's actually connected to the Resident Evil universe in the show? And the answer to that is no. So that Barry Burton is it's not Barry Burton, so we'll get that straight. So this Barry is just some zombie chained up in the bathroom. So she gets what she needed out of his pocket. The zombie, rips his arm off from the chain. He was handcuffed to like a pipe in that. He rips his hand off and he starts attacking Jade. And then Jade had no choice but to kill Barry. And then the wife of Barry, who was there, who was feeding him cats, gets mad at her. And then Jade just says feeding him cats is really fucked up. And then that scene ends. Alright, here's another rant that I'm going to go on. I don't understand why they don't call zombies in the TV show Resident Evil zombies. Hear me out. They call them zeros in the show, but zombies are established already in the Resident Evil world. For example, Resident Evil 1, they say zombie. Here's another example. Resident Evil 6, they say zombies. Here's another one. Resident Evil Revelations. Resident Evil 4. So remember Resident Evil 4 when Leon is looking for Ashley in the very beginning, like within the first 5-10 minutes of the game, the very first enemy you kill, if you inspect him, he's not a zombie. So why are they not using the word zombie in the show? They are calling them zero. Did they forget this? Did the writers even play the video games? Did they even know the lore or the story of Resident Evil? Because from what I've seen from the show so far, and it's only episode 2, they have no clue what the fuck Resident Evil is. I'm going to lose some credibility here, and I enjoyed Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Alright, hear me out before you shoot me. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. What did they fuck up the most was the character of Leon. Leon was poorly executed. It didn't even feel like Leon. And that director, he can eat my ass because he said that Leon is his favorite character. And I sickly think that he fucking hates him. However, I still, to this day, think that is the most closest adaptation of Resident Evil yet. Even though it's not perfect. Alright, now let's get back to this shit show of Resident Evil. So then Jade, she asked her crush Simon to hack into Umbrella because he conveniently is able to, and Umbrella never updates the security. He says, quote, they never update the security. So how is it you're going to have a billion-dollar corporation and just conveniently say that a 15, 16, 17-year-old can hack into Umbrella? Okay, it can be answered a little bit later on, but it's just trash writing. And then later, Jade Skypes Rubio, and then Rubio is asking questions to Jade because Jade mentions the bites and stuff that she's heard and everything and read. So Rubio asks if she has seen the bite. And then he explains that that's how it starts. And then she goes, yeah, I've seen it. And he goes, was there a rash around the bite? And then she goes, yes. And then after that, as she's talking to him, a teacher comes up out of nowhere and starts yelling, Jade Wesker! And then obviously Rubio heard of Wesker before, and he's like, Wesker! And then she shuts the computer and then moves on. Alright, we're going to talk about this a little later because there's an episode later on that makes no fucking sense. So, Albert Wesker infected a rat with Billy's blood, and that blood actually turned that rat into a zombie. So that zombie is then encaged in this glass cage. And we see a scene of the rat just bashing up against the glass, and it's slowly cracking. And then next, the glass breaks, and then it fades to black, and that episode is over. All right, so episode 3 is mainly shows more of Evelyn. So much of her role in this show comes from her drive to change the world and rebuild Umbrella. And use joy is the drug that they're trying to create, to remove illnesses like depression. However, she's trying to maintain control of Umbrella and everyone inside, like Albert Wesker. She actually starts to lose her family a little bit. Like she starts losing the relationship with her wife, which is a lesbian relationship, and her son, Simon. And they had to shoehorn that lesbian relationship in because her relationship doesn't actually have any effect to the story at all. They just shoehorned that in. And the show decides to continue writing excellent dialogue in this story. All right, so Baxter, because it goes back to the future, Baxter shows up and he continues to have outstanding dialogue, such as "Dude, ouch," to a man bleeding out on the ground. Are you fucking kidding me with this dialogue, dude? What is this shit? It's literally shit writing. And then 2 seconds later, it goes back to the past again because this show likes to go back and forth. It doesn't really know what to do with what it wants to be. So it goes back to Billy, and Billy is clearly having a rough time, like she's like overdosing from the dog bite, right? So and clearly Albert Wesker knows something that what's going on, right? So you think that it's the Wesker that we all know that died from a volcano, right? But why isn't he doing more for Billy if it's not the actual Albert Wesker, right? You would feel like he's trying everything to help Billy, but you don't get the sense in the show that he's trying to help her. So, if it was the classic Wesker, which it is not, I feel like the classic Wesker would have actually taken her and was doing experiments on her in the lab. He's not. I don't know. I don't understand what this Wesker is doing in his thought process. Oh, and by the way, do you remember the last episode when it closes, when that rat actually breaks out of the cage, and you would think that would cause the zombie apocalypse in this new Raccoon City in 2022, right? But no, that rat is actually captured by Wesker in a little, it's like a little bowl, a little see-through bowl, and we don't see it happen, but he captures it because immediately after he's looking through a microscope, looking at the virus in the blood samples. Lost all the attention because you would think that the rat that was infected was actually going to survive and go through the sewers and start biting people like in Resident Evil, right? Because that was an issue with rats. And then after that, it goes back to the future, and the future has 1 minute of the future boring dialogue, and after that, it goes back to the past again. Alright, so I'm going to rapid fire because there's a lot to like and dislike in this episode. For example, the kills were good, but everything else is bad. So, instantly we get another CW romance scene with Simon and Jade. Just a bunch of another lovey-lovey stuff that's actually cringe, if you ask me. And then instantly another useless future scene. It's a bunch of survivors, including Jade, gets in a van. And then it goes back to the past again. And then Albert and Evelyn are at work at a meeting at Umbrella, and they're talking about the new drug, Joy. So basically, Umbrella is working on this drug, Joy, that's going to help the world by curing depression and other mental diseases. However, Albert Wesker brings up the fact that if you overdose, you will turn into a monster. And Evelyn asks how many will it take, like 10, 15, 5 pills? And he goes, 20,000 pills. But you will turn 3 days before you turn into a zombie. Alright, so continuing on, they are using part of the T-virus in Joy, and Wesker wants to actually stabilize it before they just send it out, which actually makes sense. Evelyn is all about the money and just wants money and money for her corporation. But this doesn't really feel like the classic Wesker that we know, right? So the classic Wesker didn't really give a shit. He was more ruthless and like heartless, if you ask me. So that's another hint to who this Albert Wesker is. And they are also talking about like this drug could potentially mind control. They can control your emotions and behavior in that. We get another scene into the future because this show likes to go back and forth. It's another intimidating quote by Daxter. It was so freaking scary. It made the guy nervously chuckle. And you're never going to believe what he said. It was, nice ride. Yep, Baxter had another wonderful quote, and it was, nice ride, and it got that guy really nervous. Yes, really. That's how bad the writing is. We finally get another scene that actually felt like Resident Evil and also looked like Resident Evil, and that is when they went into like a tunnel, and there was it was like a licker's nest, and they started showing up, and they started killing Baxter's crew and the survivors that Jade was with, because Jade was in the van that was going through the tunnel. And yeah, it's actually always nice to see lickers in live action. I will admit, every Resident Evil that had lickers, it was a very enjoyable scene. Even with the Paul W.S. Anderson movie with Mila Jovovich, the liquor scenes were the best parts of the first one and the second one. The scene ends really fast, by the way, so it only lasts like 2 minutes, and a few survivors and Jade leave through a door and they lock it, and Baxter and his crew are up in the air shooting up in the air at the lickers, and the scene cuts. It ends really quick, and it was probably the best scene in the entire 8 episodes. So Billy spazzes out in school. She starts seeing hallucinations again. And just like in Resident Evil 3, we get a bathroom scene. And that bathroom scene is very similar to Resident Evil 3 Remake. So we see Billy in first person. She pukes in the thing. We get to see her nasty ass puke, which is always pleasant. And then she looks in the mirror and sees herself as a zombified person. And then she blinks, and she's back to normal again. All right, now back to the fun stuff. So there's a giant spider with future Jade and everything. And it's another creature from Resident Evil I really wanted to see in live action, and it actually is nice. It's actually when you actually put Resident Evil things in a Resident Evil show, people like it. So this giant spider. All right, so how about the CGI? It's acceptable, but the spider gets the best kill in the show. Son and the dad is infected, so the dad decides to sacrifice himself to fight the spider while they can run away, right? So while he goes out, he grabs a pipe and he hits the spider, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got it." And then you would expect the people to run so they can get it to safety, and then instantly gets stabbed. And then, like I said, the best kill of the whole show, he gets stabbed in the gut, and the spider leg goes vertically up, and then cuts him in half. It was the best kill of the show, I would say. So Jade runs away, and she shuts the gate on the spider and kills the spider. Then it cuts back to the past again, and oh no, it's revealed that Evelyn is Simon's mom. I wonder how this affects the story. So, spoiler alert, it doesn't. It doesn't affect the story that we find out that Simon is the son of Evelyn, which is a villain, and Albert Wesker's daughter is Jade Wesker. So why? Like, why is this a thing? It didn't affect the story at all. In all 8 episodes, it doesn't really get brought up again. Billy admits something is wrong with her, and she says that she listens too much to Billie Eilish. I'm joking. She just admits that something's wrong with her to Jade, and then Jade was going to help her. All right, so Jade finally starts getting out of the subway, and she sees a light at the end of the tunnel, and she's climbing the stairs, barely holding on. And as soon as she gets out, she sees Baxter and his men. So Baxter starts saying, "You're going to come with me to the Umbrella Corporation." And the next thing you know, out of nowhere, he gets shot, and these Frenchmen come up, and they knock them both out, and they both get taken as prisoners. So this episode was by far best and worst episode of the 3, because when they actually have Resident Evil shit in a Resident Evil show, it's entertaining. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is part 1. There's going to be a part 2 that I'm going to be uploading here in the next day or two, and make sure you subscribe. I will be talking out about more bullshit that corporations are doing to our media, and the worst is yet to come. Thank you guys again, and have a good day.